The Forest is a new first-person survival horror game being developed by Endnight Games. The game was released on Steam as part of their early access program on May 30th, 2014. After your plane crash lands on a mysterious island covered in dense forest and inhabited by ruthless cannibals, you are given one task: to survive for as long as you can. You must build tools, weapons, scavenge for food and materials, and fight off enemies to stay alive. And as of this moment, the game is currently in its alpha stage, and all footage captured for this video was from version 0.01. I've been interested in this game ever since I saw it on Steam Greenlight around June last year. I'm a huge fan of survival horror, and this seemed to offer something a little bit different to what had been released as of late. I've recently played a couple of games here on Steam that are based around survival, such as DayZ, but most of them require you to be a part of a world filled with other real players, and sometimes you don't want that. This is one of the main reasons why this game appeals to me as much as it does. There's something naturally terrifying and substantial about being alone in a place where, well, you're not actually alone. Don't get me wrong though, after playing a few hours of the alpha, the prospect of a co-op mode could prove to be a lot of fun. It's also incredibly likely, as this is something the developers apparently are considering implementing. However, the reason why I wouldn't mind having another human player along for the ride is because it's not a necessity. It's not what the game is all about at its core. Regardless, in this video I will be showing you how I spent my time when I played the game initially, and I'll be sharing my first impressions with you. Finally, just in case it wasn't clear enough, this is an alpha build of the game, which means it's definitely going to have some bugs, glitches and performance issues as it is still being developed. I'll quickly discuss the general visuals of the game and the overall performance. You might be thinking that talking about the graphics at this early stage in the game's life, seeing as it's in alpha, is a bit redundant, and for the most part you would be right. Of course there are some minor performance issues, i.e. dropped frames and stuttering, but even on this early build the textures and environments look very nice. The fires, lighting elements and the character models of the island's cannibals in particular are great. There's also a lot of detail in the forest itself which makes the experience that little bit more immersive. One of the few issues I did encounter, however, which is obviously completely expected, is with the render distance. I noticed this especially after exiting the cave and returning to the outside world, that all the trees, grass and wildlife seem to just pop in all at once. This is a minor issue, but it can remind you that you're playing a game when you're really getting into it. The user interface can be a little bit janky at this point in time also. A couple of times I've turned to the ever so handy survival guide to craft something, and I wasn't actually able to place the object down, so I could attempt to build it. And this can prove costly if you're trying to get a fire going to prepare a meal, or to even prevent yourself from freezing to death. Sound design is an extremely important factor, in my eyes at least, when it comes to video games, even more so with horror ones. It can be a simple yet invaluable tool to build tension and invoke paranoia into the play before completely crushing their soul, or to trick them into letting their guard down. And the Forest ticks all the right boxes when it comes to audio. The sound of your axe tearing through the bone and sinew of would-be threats, the alarming sound of rustling leaves and branches causing you to always have another look behind, and the traditionally spooky sound of booming thunder and lightning are a few of many things that Endnight Games get right. It's also just as noticeable when there's no sound at all. Complete silence in a game world this big is a sign of danger more often than not. Unfortunately, things like the chattering of teeth when you're slowly turning into a cornetto and the sound of your own heavy breathing after barely shaking off pursuers are missed. But hopefully these things will be included in future updates, as they would once again increase the immersion and show you just how hard your character is struggling to survive. After regaining consciousness once the plane plummeted and crashed, it was clear that, for now at least, I was alone. As I exited what was left of the plane, I pulled a blood-soaked axe from the abdomen of a flight attendant and I was out in the forest. You must find any resources you can, including luggage and debris from the wreckage, to craft tools, weapons and food to survive for as long as you can. You're given a basic lighter and a survival guide to aid you. The survival guide is actually really helpful, however, as it contains details on how to construct almost everything in the game. It tells you how many of each crafting component you need to successfully build each thing, as well as the benefits of building them, and it also gives you a basics of survival tutorial. This presents you with the 3 main steps of survival: build a shelter, start a fire and find food. This is essentially the gameplay skeleton of the Forest. It's important to note, however, that there are some pages of the survival guide that are inaccessible, which will either be available through future updates or require you to progress through the game to unlock them. Since I already found some delicious food on the plane and enough soda to make my dentist question his profession, I decided that I would try and build a shelter. Sleeping at shelters restores energy, turns day to night, and ensures that the camp will show up on your screen if you get lost. To build one, you must use your axe to cut small branches in order to get sticks, and you can find rocks to use scattered on the ground easily enough. The real fun is in the gathering of logs. To get them, you must hack all the way around the trunk of a large tree until it gives way and comes crashing to the ground. And logs are different to most of the resources in the fact that you cannot store them in your inventory. Instead, you must actually carry them by hand to your destination. I think this is a really good design choice as you're utterly defenceless while you're carrying them, and it means that you must move quickly to and from your build site. Otherwise, cunning enemies can get the sneak on you very easily and destroy you. Once you have a basic camp set up, you can even build a log holder to save you some precious time in the future when looking to fortify your base with spiked fences and traps, for example. I won't waste time talking about the benefits of starting a fire or killing animals for food and leather, as they're pretty self-explanatory. Instead, I'll briefly discuss the antagonists of the game. The general AI is a little hit and miss for me. Sometimes I would see the cannibals group together and surround me, ultimately leaving me no choice but to foolishly try and fight them, and other times they would stand completely still, allowing me to get a few crucial hits in with my axe. It is very possible that the enemies have a varied level of intelligence, but I doubt this is the case. It does seem though that they are a lot more aggressive and tactical when they are in numbers, which is how it should be more often than not. I've also had a few occasions where I would notice a group trying to ambush me, which led to them scaling the trees in an attempt to break my line of sight. I was very impressed by this. I could barely make out their burning torches zipping from tree to tree before they dropped down and tried to attack me. The enemies do have camps located around the island also, so if you have enough resources and big cojones, you can take the fight to them when they're least expecting it. Anyway, after an unsuccessful attempt at defending myself, I was struck and killed, or so I thought. I was, in fact, captured and taken to a dark, wet cave littered with the corpses of people from my plane. I'd like to point out also that you do end up in this cave at least once when you die for the first time, and it's not random. However, the game world itself is randomised when you start each playthrough, and if you die again after being captured, it's game over. So I quickly gathered what resources were carelessly left, including a better axe, a flashlight and some medicine, and looked to get myself out of there. After spending more time than I wanted to, running away from enemies and straight into rocks and walls, I managed to get out of there. And luckily for me, I slept at my shelter before I got captured, so I could follow the marker on my screen to try and return to my very crude base and have another go at this surviving business. So that's it. This has been the tale of my first trip into the forest, as well as more detail on the different aspects of the game. To summarise what this game is all about, and to possibly help you decide whether to plunk down the £10.99 to buy it if you're still undecided, I would say describing this game as a more difficult, more tense and more consequential version of Minecraft isn't too far off. Definitely scarier, as there are more horrors in this game than walking green penises. After playing just under 5 hours of this game so far, I will definitely return to the forest, and I am very excited about what additions Endnight Games will bring to the table. Thank you very much for watching, and please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. My name's Aaron, goodbye.